Hey, I'm Ronnie. All the good names are taken. Podcast 31 days, day 3. And today, by myself, solo, may do this a few times this month, talking a sequel to one of my favorite movies of all time. Or times? Which one is it? Tremors 2. Directed by S.S. Wilson, Fred Ward, and Michael Gross return. No Reba, no Kevin Bacon, no Walter, no Nestor, no Melvin, no Mexican that I can't remember his name. A whole new crew. Usually I'm all for as many sequels as we can get when I love a movie. But when it comes down to it, the magic of Tremors 1 was the relationship between Earl and Val, Fred Ward and Kevin Bacon. So when they originally wrote the script for part 2, Kevin Bacon was included, Reba was included, and unfortunately, Kevin Bacon went to do Apollo 13. Reba was on tour, so they slashed the budget from 17 million to 4, and they filmed what we have today. One cool aspect about this movie before I start talking about it is they shelved this movie for 2 years. This movie was completed in 1994, and they shelved it for 2 years because they didn't know what they wanted to do with it. And when they finally released it, audiences liked it so much, they wanted to see it in theaters. Tremors 1 was one of those movies that probably shouldn't have been any good, but turned into like lightning in a bottle. And what I mean by lightning in a bottle is wasn't financially successful, but I think it's a movie that stood the test of time and one of those movies that has gotten better and a cult following over the 30 plus years that it's been out. I think a lot of people appreciate that movie for what it is. And when you make a sequel to something like that, it's hard to catch that lightning twice. So the original director doesn't come back. So what do? They put S.S. Wilson in there, who was the writer of Tremors. Now, what has S.S. Wilson done? He did Short Circuit. He did Short Circuit 2. And he did Ghost Dad with Bill Cosby. Everybody remembers Ghost Dad. That's where Bill Cosby gets killed trying to rape somebody. And then he comes back as a ghost trying to rape people as a ghost. I've never seen it, but I just assume that's what it's about. So this movie picks up, and immediately I'm like, what could have been? What could have been? If we could have gotten Kevin Bacon back for this movie, what could have been? But we didn't. We got a shitty sidekick this time named Grady. So the movie picks up, and I'm going to be very clear about this. There's like 5 characters in this movie. There's Fred Ward. There's the new sidekick. There's Michael Gross, Burt Gummer. And then there's some chick that posed in Playboy like 50 years ago. That's Fred Ward's dream girl that's in it. And then they've got a random Hispanic that I don't know. Everybody that gets killed in this movie is a Mexican. The movie takes place in Mexico. So we're joined again. We join our hero from the first movie, Fred Ward. And he's down on his luck. He's still living in a camper. He is trying to raise ostriches. And I don't know if you guys have seen this movie, know what's going on at the beginning of it, but he's trying to get these 2 ostriches to screw because he wants an ostrich farm. The problem is he bought 2 male ostriches and he doesn't even know it. So he's standing there at the fence like the first 10 minutes of the movie going, go on, it. All right? So.
Hey, Ronnie, were you a little thrown off by Fred Ward's long hair? I didn't like it. Made me feel like I was watching a titty flick.
No, that's a good point. That is a good point, Donald. I did not like Fred Ward's hair in this movie. See, Fred Ward's one of my favorite actors because when I see him on screen, it's like the screen lights up. I loved all the cameos he had in the teen movies in the 2000s. And when I see Fred Ward in Tremors 2, he's got longer hair. And all I can remember that is Fred Ward went through a sleazy phase in his movies where he's a lot in them and having sex. And I'm not a big fan of that. I don't want to think of Fred Ward or Earl Bassett in this movie as a sexual person. So I don't need to see the shots where he bends over and the chick's checking his ass out, or the fact that when you go into his camper, it's like lined all around with naked pictures of women. And I wish Blake was here because that's like a discussion that needs to be had. What was the deal in the 80s and 90s? Like, it was socially acceptable if kids had a clubhouse, if teens had a clubhouse, if there was a frat house, that it was just papered, wallpapered with nothing but nude pictures everywhere. And nobody thought nothing of it. If I walk into somebody's house now in 2024 and they got nude pictures all over their wall, I'm thinking this person's a damn psychopath and I'm getting out of there as soon as possible. This Grady guy didn't think anything of it. So back to what I was originally trying to talk about. I don't like the fact that Fred Ward is down on his luck. We leave Tremors 1 and him and Val are poised for greatness. They finally caught their break. They're going to be in National Geographic. And all Grady points out is the fact that, hey, you must have all this money. And Earl tells him, I didn't invest it well. They based an arcade off the graboids. He has one sitting in his camper. Pretty cool. They talk about a Reebok commercial that him and Val filmed in the desert running after graboids. I would love to see footage of that.
That's what I like to know about it.
But he wasted his money. And he's hoping for one more big break. And Grady's there because Grady has promised these Hispanics across the border that he can get Earl Bassett there to hunt the graboids that are stopping an oil refinery from making oil. So the whole movie is based off the fact that the oil company will pay Earl and Grady $50,000 for every graboid they kill. That aspect of it had me counting and trying to keep up with just how much money Earl was making throughout this movie. Because, I mean, he's one of my favorite characters. You want to see him do good. You want to see him by the end of this movie have $1 million so he can go live in his camper and be happy forever. He's talking about investing in it. You never, don't do that. Don't invest. The entirety of the movie is just sort of like Earl and Grady out in an open area. They did a very good job of finding like an isolated area, like in the first movie. It mostly takes place, I don't want to say desert because it's a huge field, but it's out in the middle of nowhere. And they're sitting around. And of course, after the events of the first one, they know the easiest way to kill these graboids are to lure them in fishing style. So when Earl tells the Mexican government what he needs, it was a bunch of like RC cars that he could strap dynamite to. And then when the graboids take them down, he hits a button and they explode. I do like the fact that they told us where Val was. Earl brings it up early in the movie that Val found a good woman and he settled down and he's happy. I do like the fact that when we're introduced to Bert again, when Earl makes the call that he needs help from Bert, that Bert is sitting in his basement. You get to see the wall that was destroyed behind him in part one. And he's down. Well, he's severely depressed is the way I guess I should put it, because his wife has left him. Reba left him. She took the 50 cal and she's not coming back. Bert jumps into his car and he heads to Mexico to help these guys out. Along the way, of course, something happens. Earl and Grady get stranded. They hear this loud moaning sound. They come up on a graboid who is evolving and giving birth to a graboid with legs. Now, in the first one, the graboids went by sound. In this one, the graboids that can walk, they go by infrared. So if they can see you, they kill you, which added a new aspect to the movie, made it a little bit more clever. Because like I said, the first one, they set the tone of how you could kill these guys. So in this one, they're flying around. They look like half chicken, half turkey type things with their mouth. The CGI, people are going to complain about CGI because it looks bad. But overall, it doesn't take away from the movie. They eat Bert's MREs, and there's 1 million of them in a warehouse. And they blow up the warehouse at the end of the movie, and everything is saved. I just like the new aspect that they threw on us where now it's infrared. Now they're above ground and they're a little bit more dangerous. Led to a few scenes that were pretty cool. One where you think Bert is going to bite it and he comes rolling up and goes,
I feel I was denied critical, need to know information.
Overall, not a bad sequel. I did think it was kind of weird that the woman that he had pinned up in his camper, spread eagle, turned out to be the geologist that was out there working with the Mexican government. That seemed far-fetched considering, if you're posing for Playboy, you're pretty much worthless anyway.
Hey, Ronnie, what would the story have been if Kevin Bacon had returned to play Val? Do you think it would have been the same or something totally different? Would guts have been pounded?
I don't know, Ghostface. I don't know what they could have done if Kevin Bacon would have come back. I don't know if this movie works even with Kevin Bacon, because It's kind of weak. I don't see how it couldn't, though. I know I'm talking out both sides of my mouth. I don't see how it couldn't work just because the chemistry between Fred Ward and Kevin Bacon was so good that it would have made this movie 1,000 times better. I did make a note that it should have been just Fred Ward and Bert. We didn't need the Grady character. He was doing a half-ass impression of Val anyway that made you just wish Kevin Bacon was there. They should have recruited Earl and Bert to come to Mexico and kill all these graboids. I think that would have made a better movie because pretty much if Bert or Earl are not on screen, if it's not Fred Ward and Michael Gross on screen in this movie, it's really not worth watching. Overall, a really decent, I guess is the word, sequel to an amazing movie. If I had to rate it, I don't know, like 5.8 out of 10. 5.8 out of 10. There you go. That's day 3 in the books, Solo. I mean, all these can't be 25 minutes, guys. It's Tremors 2, for Christ's sakes. What do you want to talk about? It didn't make any money. It led to 47 more sequels. I've seen all of them. I think the franchise jumped the shark when Jamie Kennedy joined up, but what can you do? Shit them out till you can't make any more money off of them. Day 3, October the 3rd. Check out our previous 2 reviews if you hadn't already. Like, subscribe, leave your thoughts in the comments. What did you think of Tremors 2? Your best moments, worst moments? Tell me. Enjoy October, guys. See you tomorrow.